A lot for staying with us. Tonight, we're focused on President Tinubu's economic diplomacy, and I've been speaking with an economist, Kaido Yedeji, as well as a strategy and governance expert, Yemi Makwadero. All right, gentlemen, let's move on with the conversation. But let's look at still the G20 summit, where President Tinubu wooed companies like Volkswagen and other manufacturers back to Nigeria. What impact will this have on investment and manufacturing in the country?
Well, I think it's going to be serve as a catalyst, to the Nigerian economy. I mean, if we take Volkswagen, for instance. I drove, past the old Volkswagen office, on the Lagos-Badagry Expressway. And I said, this used to be, an employer of labor, a driver of Nigerian economy. Churning out, the Beetles, Passat, and the rest of them back then. And when a similar thing happened in Rwanda, when Volkswagen went to Rwanda, a lot of Nigerians were envious that, why Rwanda? Why not Nigeria? So the window is there now. And what that will mean is that it's going to have an implication for our steel industry, like how they mentioned. Because, I imagine that close to 60% or more of every vehicle consists of steel, the body, the engine, and the rest of them. So it's also going to help to bring down, the use of, Tokubo cars, used cars that have a lot of damaging effect on the environment. Another thing I foresee, where if this comes to fruition, apart from the employment it will generate, and then the chain, the value chain that it will create, it will certainly boost, the country's GDP. It will boost, confidence in our economy. It will also bring back, psychologically, there is this feeling of, there will be this feeling of deja vu. I mean, for those who witnessed what we saw in the 70s and 80s about cars being, foreign brands being assembled, at least in Nigeria. And I hope the same thing can happen to, the Peugeot automobile in Kaduna. So I think in terms of the automotive industry, it will have a great impact. And in terms of, industrialization, in terms of the value chain and the rest of it, I think it will also improve the nation's economy. But I also need to add to this issue of the value of the naira, against the dollar. While we focus on increasing the quantum, of dollars inflow into the Nigerian economy, it is important that we also look at the demand side. Oil and gas industry, for instance, importation of fuel gobs a lot of, foreign exchange. And with the coming on stream, of both the private and, the Kaduna, the Port Harcourt, and I heard the Warri refineries between December and, first quarter of next year. If all of these come, into fruition, the pressure on the dollar will reduce. And of course, we also need to focus on, medical tourism, and also the educational system is another, area that gobs a lot of foreign exchange. A lot of, practically every family in Nigeria now has somebody schooling abroad. So all of these, put pressure, on the dollar. And even in terms of agriculture, Nigeria is very solid when it comes to potentials, in the agricultural sector. If you're able to put, add value, to our economic, agricultural products for export, it will attract, so much more dollars, into the country, and a whole lot of other things. So I think, you see, my fear, which I think I must also express, so that those in government will know and have, perhaps have some think tank, around that issue, is that there are so many, sound policies that we have had in Nigeria. You will see the positive effect for a few weeks.
All right.
And then before you know it, things. So we must have a strategic approach at looking at all of these things holistically, rather than expecting or thinking that the moment a Volkswagen comes into Nigeria, or the moment, you have investment in, power and energy, then the value of the naira will increase, or the economy to be El Dorado. We must have a holistic approach to it, including ownership. Ownership. You see, the way we Nigerians manage, or the way we handle, public infrastructure. In fact, even mentally, we have a lot of people that are in Nigeria, but how many of us are really Nigerians? I mean,
patriotic Nigerians.
Yes, you have to begin to look at the mind of the people. Let's connect to the mind of the people, so that they begin to see Nigeria as a place of opportunities, and a place that you see has potentials that will become, reality. Doing that, especially with the young talk, with the young people we have, the Gen Zs, a lot of them don't believe, in Nigeria. So some of these policies coming into fruition, and then the consistency of the government, and then leadership by example, especially by the political class. You see, we need to reduce to a very manageable, our level of modesty, should be enhanced. There is a lot of profligacy, around the public sector, or at least the perception of profligacy around the public sector. So all of this will go a long way in building the confidence of the people, and having that critical mass that will trust and support the government in its policies.
Right. So another highlight of that summit was President Tinubu signing striking deals with countries like Germany, Korea, India, and others to boost the economy. What does the country stand to gain from such deals? I would also like to have your thoughts on this, but let me have Mr. Coyote.
Well, if you look at our problems in the last 16 years or thereabouts, we've had governments all over the world losing interest in Nigeria, losing belief, if I can put it that way, in what Nigeria can do. They love Nigeria. They know there's a big market. Most multinationals in Nigeria are practically struggling. Unilever is hardly making profits. Virtually all of them are running into troubled waters. And they also invariably had to employ Nigerian strategy towards surviving, ensuring that they survive. So what Nigeria can do with those countries is to tell the leaders, like we did with Germany under Buhari, with the cement project, we have this problem. We want you to be directly involved in resolving them. President Buhari, of all the things we thought he did not do, was able to engage the German government in bringing cement back to Nigeria to do real business in the energy sector. And that's what the president must have done all through his meetings with different countries of the world. A new Nigeria, like I've been saying, is here. How do you help us in this sector of the economy? How do you help us to rejuvenate the sector of the economy, and so on and so forth? And apart from having meetings with leaders of those countries, are some countries that have sovereign wealth fund, like Saudi Arabia. Has sovereign funds in excess of $650 billion, looking for a way to buying football clubs in England and others, all kinds of investments. He would approach them and let them know it's a new dawn in Nigeria. Put some of your sovereign fund. The United Kingdom did a lot of that, approaching the Middle East government and telling them you are allowed, relaxing laws, trying to modify laws, trying to make sure that they attract a lot of investment to the UK. You'd be surprised that even as a non-Islamic nation, for instance, the United Kingdom has been able to attract a lot of Sukuk funds, bonds into its economy. And they did that one by, of course, having multilateral agreements with other countries and say, okay, these are the issues. We can be a bit flexible, can be able to attract this kind of investment to the economy. So we'll have a lot of that going forward. The president has his eyes on foreign investment, which is key. Be talking to different countries. The cement project is still ongoing, and I think it's yielding a lot of results, though at a slow rate. You expect that kind of country-to-country agreement You may need food swap, you may need oil swap. You only do that at the level of president to president, government to government. For instance, if Nigeria decides to bring in rice today, and they don't want it to rock, to create so much distortions within the system, Nigeria may decide to do rice swap with the government of Thailand. That means the president will have to initiate that kind of deal and say, see, you give us rice because we have critical need for rice, I will give you oil. And when you have that kind of swap, you have limited movement of foreign exchange. You know we lack it, of dollar that we don't have going to Thailand. So there is a lot of things the government can do. Government can go to Germany and say, okay, you want your automobile industry to have a foothold in Nigeria. What we are going to do is, Nigeria is a public sector economy. If you're able to build your automobile industry in Nigeria, government will link it up to the payroll of every worker. That means every worker that has reached certain level will be given loan to buy your car, and they'll be able to pay over a period of 20 years, and it doesn't affect anybody. A lot of incentives which only government can, a lot of commitments which only government can make. See, for instance, now you are bringing Volkswagen back to Nigeria, and government tells them if you can roll out 5,000, 10,000 cars with local content, verifiable local content, we'll make sure we make our staff, our workers, the working class, the middle class, to buy these cars. Our government will guarantee their loan, and they can pay back over a period of 4 years, which is a useful life period of that car. So a lot of initiatives can come on board if you have people at the back end thinking for the government. If you look about the people at the back end thinking about Nigeria. You see, like you said earlier, very few people, it's not Nigeria alone, all over the world. It said that only about 5% of every population, they're thinking for their country. The rest just wait for things to happen.
I mean, Germany is Europe's largest economy, South Korea, Asia's fourth largest economy, India, Asia's global giant. How significant are these views?
Very significant. First and foremost, I mean, it underscores the confidence, that these countries, have in Nigeria now. Now, the challenge that we're going to have, I understand that the German Chancellor will be paying, an official visit to Nigeria next month. That is significant. Even the American president sent an advance party to our president here to let him know that, look, I would like to have a meeting on the sidelines with you at the G20 meeting. These are indications of, confidence in the country. But we have a responsibility as a nation to now sustain this. And how do we sustain it? One of it is the issue of, the rule of law. And when I'm talking of the rule of law, I'm not talking in terms of unfettered, freedom, by people. I'm talking about consequences being meted out for actions. For instance, these people are bringing their investments. They want their investments to be protected. How is the legal system going to aid that in Nigeria? When people misbehave, are there consequences? And then when I want to do business in Nigeria, will the civil servant extort me? A lot of organizations are going through that. Some have tried to find some ingenious ways, of surmounting it by contracting the corrupt part of operations to consultants, because they don't believe in paying bribes, but they know they cannot also survive without doing it. So they get on consultants, they just pay the consultant, go and get this for us. All of these things are things that will retain the confidence of investors if we are able to begin to turn them around. I mean, for instance, people will drive on the street, right? And then they don't see policemen, they see policemen being professional. It sends a message, about the country. So these are some of the things that we need to do. It is gladdening that these countries, Germany, US, India, South Korea, are showing interest in Nigeria. This is not the first time, really, that they will be expressing interest. But for them to crystallize it, we must tidy our own end domestically.
Thank you for taking us there. I mean, since these deals require mutual benefits and commitments, what do you think Nigeria needs to do to bring these efforts to fruition?
Well, for me, like I said, the legal framework is important. Some of them are already in place. For instance, in the power sector, the president, one of the first things he did was to sign the power reform, bill into law, which makes it possible for companies and private individuals to generate, transmit, and distribute electricity. So that is one huge area that will attract investors in the power sector, which Nigeria has already done. We also need to look at the areas of where our tax, the tax policies, and which I am happy that is one of the areas that the president actually mentioned on his inauguration, and which he has also taken a step about by coming up with this tax reform committee. There should be tax incentives, but we should not mortgage potential revenue in the name of tax incentives. There should be no multiplicity of taxation. There is a system that worked, in some other countries, including Georgia. Georgia used to be an extremely corrupt, country. But the government came up with the policy of one government. What does that mean? You don't need to carry your file as an investor to different government agencies in search of approvals. What they do is, it's one government. If you put in your paper into NAFDAC, if it requires Standards Organization of Nigeria's input, that is not going to be your business. It will be the business of NAFDAC to make sure that that file travels to wherever it should travel to, and then come back within a specified period of time. It has worked in Lagos, where the issue of 1 month, 30 days CFO was, established in Lagos, and to a large extent, it has worked. So these are some of the things that will require strong governance, and that is why when we talk a lot about good governance, but we must know that at this point in Nigeria, we need strong governance, not draconian governance. Strong governance is, once you say this is what is going to happen, you must pull all the stops, exactly, to make sure that, it happens. No excuses. And I'm happy the president said no excuses.
So the president's delegation included several captains of industry. What do they stand to gain?
Well, like I said, the president has a clear strategy of working with the private sector to achieve his goal. He did that in Lagos, down to waste management, until he was able to bring the core of it out and over to the private sector. They didn't get results. So the president wanted an handshake between government, between foreign investors and Nigerian investors, leading investors in Nigeria, and that's strategic. They were in that team to also talk to their counterparts from other countries and governments and make sure that they have a feel of what government is doing, a feel of government commitment, know the opportunities that are emerging there, and they're able also to take position, so to say. But beyond that, the domestic economy is key. Yes, it's the nail, the core of it. There must be efficiency within government. There must be efficiency within government business. There must be a regulatory system that works. The regulatory environment must be sanitized. This is the only country in the world where people in public sector are richer than people in the private sector. We don't deceive ourselves. We won't make progress with that. Where people are running out of the public sector, private sector, to go and make more money in the public sector. The public sector is about sacrifice, it's about statesmanship, it's about nation building, and until this is checked, this is the only country where a governor without a second address flies all over the world with his family, no accountability, nothing is done. You can't live on the sweat of the people and expect people to be happy. You need a very happy people, a very happy population to welcome your foreign investors, to work with your foreign investors, to cooperate with your foreign investors. As long as you have hostile population, reluctant population, unbelieving population, you're not going to get the desired results. And the way to do it is to make sure that the local environment is sanitized of excessive greed, is sanitized of inefficiency. People are beginning to have confidence that if I work hard, I will eat it hard. Not that I will sleep a poor man, but because I know one man, I will wake up a rich man. You need a population that believes. You need a population that has confidence in government business. And that's one area where President Tinubu must be able to do more. He must be able to energize the nation. He must be able to tell the nation that, see, everything is about you. But government has never been about Nigerians for the past 20-something years. People go to government and become heavy. People see it. Their churches see it. The mosques see it. Their communities see it. People become billionaires in 22 years without a second address. These are the things President Tinubu must do for all of us. We appreciate his efforts. Under President Obasanjo, he initiated the due diligence office, and the impact was felt. And the reason why I did it was that as investments are coming in, rent taking must be reduced to the barest minimum.
Right.
We must go back to that process.
I mean, just like I said, it's a new dawn, and definitely we look forward to things changing. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you very much for having me.
Yemi Makbaderu, strategy and governance expert. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on the program.